All right, listeners, it's Ryan and Megan, and welcome to the Mental Health Mixtape, a podcast dedicated to fostering open conversations, sharing stories, and exploring a diverse range of topics related to mental health. So hold on to your seats as we sit down with some amazing guests to get their perspectives on the ever-changing landscape of mental health. And for all you old folks, no need to hit the record and pause button. Just sit back and let us navigate life's playlist together. During this podcast, you may hear stories about traumatic events and our guests' experiences. There may be discussions about suicide, traumatic events, and the outcomes from these events on personal lives. If you're struggling with anything you hear, please reach out to your peer support team, psychologist, call 911, or head to the nearest hospital. In Canada, you could call Boots on the Ground Peer Support for First Responders at 1-833-677-2668. Talk Suicide Canada at 1-833-456-4566. And in the United States, call 988 for the National Crisis and Suicide Lifeline. It should be noted that the information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical, psychological advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Wow.
Wow.
It's all official now.
It is. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. How's your day?
Busy. Always busy, but good.
Yeah?
I was just having some meetings, talking to some people.
Amazing.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here too.
Yeah.
This is a good podcast, I think, today. We've got a really special guest, I think, from a peer support perspective and my perspective and, you know, all the work I've done in EMS. Introduce yourself.
Go now.
And go.
Okay, I'm Mo. I am the president of Boots on the Ground Alberta.
Okay.
First of all, thank you guys very much for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Yeah.
It's got a great setup here.
Oh, thanks.
But yeah, no, thank you very much. And Boots on the Ground, I brought it to Alberta. Started in 2022. I'm sure we'll go into details later.
Yeah.
We started operations just in September of 2023. And we've been busy.
And you've been busy.
Yeah, peer support and everything. Personally, I just got out of federal corrections. I'm a reservist with the military. And I used to be with the fire department part-time. That was my first response world. And now I'm an instructor at a post-secondary institution here in Calgary.
Where are you at?
Teaching at Bow Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, just teaching justice studies, criminal justice, all that stuff. So.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome. Had you two met before?
No, we were just having a great conversation
Yeah.
before we started the podcast.
Yeah, so I'm so excited to have you here, Mo, because I'm a big fan of what Boots on the Ground does, and so I'm interested in how you brought a branch to Alberta. But also, just it's so cool to meet someone new who's doing such impactful work with the community. So
likewise, thank you very much. I had heard about you, like I said, 2-3 years ago from a mutual friend, and at that time I was really looking to try to help myself out with professional help, and I did not know the process at all at the time of how it happens and all that, and so I used to ask friends who already knew this, already were, seeking help or advocating for it. And a friend of mine gave me your name specifically.
Oh.
And then I looked it up, and then I tried, not approaching you personally, but coming to Wayfound.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that time it didn't work out, and then, eventually it worked out, and yeah, I'm sure we'll cover all that as we go forward.
Yeah. It's a small world
Oh,
and
yeah.
a small community, but it's great, and it's so nice to meet someone who's local, and I'm sure we'll be able to keep this going after this.
Yeah, and we were having a conversation before you arrived, really about
Late again.
Well, that's okay. You're busy. But I think that's the important thing is we don't really have a structure to the podcast. It's just asking a simple question of how did you get to where you were? And you started talking with me about the trajectory of your life and, where you were at from federal corrections. And, I think that's a great place to start is where we left off, or even from when we first started talking, because I think that sets the stage for really how you got to where you are with Boots on the Ground And I think our listeners are really, they're looking for, lived and shared experience. They're looking for, how did you get to where you are, and what was some of the vulnerabilities you had to show, right? To put your hand up and ask for help, because really peer support is peer support. It's one-on-one, it's face-to-face or over the phone. And it has to be, there's some really interesting facets that you actually brought up in our conversation that I'd really like to kind of replay within what we're doing. So really the question is, how did you get here? How did you get to this seat today?
Get to the seat. It is a long journey, an interesting one for lack of a better term, really. I immigrated to Canada when I was a teenager. I came here alone. My family had come here before we ever landed immigrants and all that stuff, but then my family went back and I came back alone a few years later, and I was still in high school at the time. Came here alone, went to Ontario. I was in Ontario, finished my high school there, and then decided I was gonna, I didn't know what to do with my life, but I grew up in a military family.
Okay.
My parents were both military in Pakistan, and that's what fascinated me. That's what I wanted to do, but I just didn't know how to get there. Right. Like, never know how to get there. So, a friend of mine suggested, hey, go into criminology or criminal justice and, become a cop. Cool. I'll do that. Right. So, for reasons I've never really understood myself, I decided to go to the States to do my bachelor's. I went to Michigan. And, Detroit, Michigan. So it wasn't that I didn't move there. I was just commuting between Canada and the U.S. Completed my criminal justice, but at that time I wasn't even a Canadian citizen, let alone a U.S. citizen. So I couldn't get a job in the U.S. at all. Like, with the law enforcement part of things, like, you have to be a citizen for everything there. Moved out to BC, joined Abbotsford Fire Rescue. Then I got my citizenship, and the day I got my citizenship, it was in Surrey, BC. I drove straight to the Canadian Forces Recruitment Center, and I want to apply. Wow. And applied to them, but it took forever to get a call from them.
Right. What year are we at this point?
2011.
Okay, so we're post-Afghanistan.
Yes,
okay.
2011. Yeah. They're like, no, you're not, you're not, they took my application, but I was a dual citizen, fresh citizen, didn't even have a passport yet, right? Like, I literally went from the citizenship ceremony to the CF Center.
Oh, wow.
And, they were taking a while, but at the same time, I applied to corrections as well, federal corrections. And I was applying to different police forces. Like, I was waiting for my citizenship, permanent residency, all that. Permanent residency, I was already applying, but at that time, many different services wanted you to be a citizen. So I wasn't getting anywhere. Applied to corrections. They took me. This was October. No, I got a letter from them maybe in like August of 2012, and they're like, "You're going to Edmonton." I was living in Abbotsford, and they're like, "Yeah, you're going to Edmonton." Cool. Wow. Well, they sent me to Saskatoon for training for 3-4 months, and then I was posted to Edmonton. That was 2012, and then I was posted to Edmonton Max for a while. I landed in a squad. We worked in 3 squads. I landed in a squad that was very alpha-ish, right? Like very young guys. Very. Our pastime was shooting and working out, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we were very go-getters, just always doing different things. But one thing that we did not have within our squad, given that alpha stuff, was we didn't participate in anything extracurricular at work. Mm-hmm. We were not on the union. We were not we were on the union, sorry. We were not, let's say, get directly to the point, we were not on the peer support.
Got it.
Not one of us was on the peer support team that was at work.
Okay.
And Edmonton is a very active site. That's me being careful with words.
Mm-hmm.
It is an extremely violent site.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yep.
So we were, nobody was on the peer support team, and we never, anytime there was an incident that happened, which was every day, multiple times a shift pretty much, they would have to call in a peer support guy because nobody was on our squad, so somebody had to come from home, and we would literally tell them to go pound sand, right? Because nobody's talking to them, right?
Yeah.
Although they are officers as well, they're uniformed officers, peers, right? But you're not from my squad.
Just not going to go there. Yeah.
It's, we have a big tribe, and then it keeps getting smaller and smaller, and we're cliques.
Yeah.
Yep.
We are one squad, and then we are one unit.
Right.
And,
right.
Unit, and then squad, and then everybody else, right? So, but then we did have an incident occur where a few of us, just our unit guys, so four or five of us, were involved in an incident which turned quite violent, and violence with weapon and all that stuff, and it was going to be assault on officers. We were able to fight it off, not a problem. Later on, a friend of mine approached me, and we just started talking, and he broke down. Wanted to chat about the incident, but totally broke down. And he was one of the toughest guys I know, right? Like,
was he part of that?
Yeah, he was part of our squabble,
right?
That happened, but it was later on after the shift. He approached me, and we started talking, and he broke down, and I was like, okay, you know what? People do want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
But we, and everybody wants to talk. And don't get me wrong, I was younger. I was more of a fool. Full of piss and vinegar, whatever they call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was part of that group that used to tell any mental health stuff to go away. That's cuckoo, right?
Yeah.
I'm ashamed of that, but yeah, I was part of that. And I was like, you know what? We need to have some representation on, like, our guys don't talk to anybody because nobody is on the peer support team. But I think we need it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied to the peer support team, and I got in and got my training done and everything. And man, it was quite a revelation to me of how many people actually wanted to talk.
Yeah.
The amount of 1 a.m. coffees I had with people, like they normally, a lot of people talked at work too, but a lot of people wanted to talk afterwards, right?
Yep.
And this is again coming from the place, from the squad where nobody ever
did
talked,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Nobody ever talked.
So I wonder if you started to represent something.
I was one of them, right?
Yeah,
I was one
right.
of them. Okay, yeah, they wanted to talk now because I guess they just needed somebody that was from the squad, right? Like from within. So we did that. I considered myself very mentally strong. Something I've said in the past is I loved what I did at Edmonton, right? Doesn't matter how violent it was. There was chaos. I loved it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was addicted to it. My mental health struggles have included leaving that violent place.
Yeah.
Not being there, but leaving it. But now that I've matured a little bit, I do recognize that the same place has done a lot of damage to a lot of good people.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like to recognize that, and I do like to acknowledge that before I go any further. A lot of very good people. Yeah, that place has done a lot of damage to them. But but I strived in that. I loved what I did day in and day out. So I took pride in what I did. I never personally ever used the services that I was providing. I wasn't using the peer support.
Right.
Until 2017, I want to say. Oh, by this time I had got into the Army Reserves as well. But 2017-ish there happened to be a humongous incident. Now, by this time, again, I told you we were in units, right?
Yeah.
So we had a unit of 6 guys. 4 of us were the permanent ones, and 2 were, rotating kind of deal. So 4 of us were very, very tight. Tight in a sense that we had 1 female, and I walked her down the aisle at her wedding, right?
Oh,
So we
wow.
were that kind of close. And the 2 guys, so out of the 4, 2 guys, they didn't show up to work one day because they went out to a concert or something the night before. They just didn't show up to work one day, and they weren't there, which ended up being a blessing in disguise for us. It was April 1st, and we get a call. Everybody responds to this unit, and it is a very nasty hostage taking that's going on, and a lot of very gory scene, very nasty scene, very bloody scene. I was right in the front talking to the assailants and the victim and 5 assailants, and I was talking to them and trying to save this guy's life, trying to negotiate. I wasn't a negotiator at the time. I eventually did become a negotiator, but I wasn't a negotiator at the time. I'm just trying to save this guy's life at this point. Somehow pull him out. I said 2017, it could have been 2016 too. I kind of feel like I wasn't married at the time, and I got married in 2018. Anyhow, I pulled this guy out, get him to hospital, all that. It was a very nasty scene. This guy would have died. He survived, but he would have died. I thought he was dead when I dragged him out of the cell and all that stuff. And that shift ended up being pretty long, almost 24 hours, right?
Wow. Yeah.
As I'm leaving work, I tell the manager, I'm like, hey man, it's, my shift had started at 6:45 in the morning. Incident happened around 2:30. I was going home around 5:30 in the morning.
Wow.
6:45, my shift starts again.
Oh my goodness.
But at this time, I'm entitled to a time off because I just did,
Yeah.
much longer than my own shift. My shift was supposed to end at like 3:45 or something. But so I tell the manager, I'm like, hey man, I'll be back in by 9. Or you could just stay home. No, I'll be back. Right? Went home, showered, changed, caught something to eat. Maybe I was drenched in blood of somebody else, right? So washed up, ate, maybe took a nap, and headed back to the institution. And now the reason I headed back to the institution, I knew in my heart why I was going back to the institution, although I could have taken a day off, was the 2 buddies who didn't show up the day before, the day of the incident, were going to be there now. They were going to be at work that day. And those are the people I wanted to be around.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to be around my friends.
Yeah.
I wanted to be around my people. I didn't want to be home alone
By
after
yourself, yeah.
after all that had gone on for past 24 hours, right? So we went to work and we talked about stuff, and it was, I felt fine after that. And that really helped. So that day I really understood the value of the service that I was providing as a peer support team member.
Yeah.
And, it continued on. All was good. I eventually moved to, I got promoted, and position I got promoted to, they didn't have a position available for me in Edmonton, so they transferred me to Bowden Institution. And I get there, and now I believe is when my struggles started. After that.
Mm. Any theories on to why?
Sorry?
Any theories as to why?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll go into it. I'll
Okay.
discuss this at length with my therapist and everything. When I moved to Bowden, I got promoted into a position that was national trainer. Like I was the training officer for Correctional Service Canada. But that position was very isolated. You weren't in a unit anymore. You weren't in a squad anymore. 2 of you were posted to an institution, and you weren't even posted to an institution. You were a national trainer, so I was traveling pretty much all around the country training officers or training recruits. But when I was home, then I would go to Bowden, and you're just with one other guy.
Mm-hmm.
And now something good had happened. I got promoted. I was making more money. I had different rank. I didn't have to work inside the institution anymore. I was working on the range. I'm a firearms enthusiast, so I was teaching firearms all day and self-defense and this and that and blah, blah. The camaraderie was gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That chaos was gone that I was so used to in Edmonton.
Yeah, because Bowden is a very different
place.
environment than
Very
Edmonton
different
Max, for
place.
sure.
Yeah.
And I just started going downhill like crazy. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the crash just started happening, and I was just losing my mind, right? Like it was so a message I always give is your mental health struggles don't have to come from something bad.
Yeah.
They could also come from something good, which is, getting promoted, making more money, this and that, all that stuff. Well, sometimes you just lose that, your tribe. Yeah, you lose your people, and issues start.
Yeah, man, context is powerful.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, and I can't help but think of the book by Sebastian Junger called Tribe. Have you ever read it?
I have not.
Oh, you should.
Not.
Yeah, you'd like it. Yeah.
I think you'd really like it because it speaks about the military, specifically the Marine Corps in Afghanistan during the conflict, and when they would come back, what they lost was what exactly you're speaking about: the camaraderie, the tightness, the closeness of their tribe, because everybody has shared and lived experiences.
Yep.
And then when they move themselves out of active service and they either retire or they come back to base, back to home, that shift is where the things started to change, right? So it just keeps, if you haven't read it, then I would encourage you to read it.
No, I definitely will. I definitely will check it out. It's, like I said, I lived it firsthand, and I am a strong advocate. When I was on the peer support team myself, like at Edmonton, I was like, why do we need to provide services to the higher ups, right? Like, but now I look at it and I go, man, the higher you go, the warden of the institution, I don't care whether I like him or I hate him, and trust me, I've hated most of them, don't get me wrong, right? But they have nobody to share this thing with, right? Like at least I had one partner, if we got along and everything, and I did, I like my partner, but we never had this kind of conversation because, again, I was parachuted in from somewhere else, right? Like it was different mentality, different all that. We were very professional at work, all good, but we didn't have that level of comfort where I would share any struggles with them. But then you move up, and the warden, he can't go to his subordinates.
Nope.
And be like, hey, guess what? That's really bothered me, and I, now I understand all that stuff. So anyhow, so those struggles started. There was some other things, the other things that have contributed to mental health issues having to do with work. I just wasn't used to. I did work inside for like 2 months at Bowden before I was sent away on my promotion course. And in those 2 months, oh man, that place did a lot of damage to me, right? Again, no violence happened. The days became extremely long, right? Because at Edmonton, a thing would happen, you would respond, adrenaline was
constantly pumping,
always there. And when it was wearing off, you were doing your report, and by the time you were done your report, your shift was done, and you're going home, right?
Yep.
Well, at Bowden, none of that was happening. right? And then the population that you were dealing with, right? Like all of a sudden it was like just everything changed, right? In fact, one of my first 2 weeks maybe, and I thought I knew my job, right? Like I was pretty good at my job. When I was in Edmonton, I was there 2 weeks, and an inmate comes up to me and says, "Hey, can you fill out this form for me, like some sort of form?" And I was like, I made a joke to him, an idiot joke, but I did, where I was like, "Hey, yeah, I'll do that. Can you go? Do you have a mirror in your cell?" And he goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Can you bring that?" And he brings it to me, and I look at the mirror, and I'm like, I don't see idiot written on my forehead. Do you see it? Right? Because I thought he was just testing me because I'm a new guy, because I'd never heard of this form before. And I've done enough service at Edmonton, right?
Right.
Nope. Turns out there was that form, right?
Oh,
it's just never used at a max.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Totally different.
all of a sudden, I didn't know my job, right? Like I was a new guy. I didn't know. I've learned all this, but I didn't know my job all of a sudden, right? So anyhow, like there were several things that happened there. That'd be a complete different path.
It has this sense of going from like fifth gear down to second instead of going through the other passes,
100%,
right? Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
And but yeah, no. Then I worked as a trainer for a couple years, until I was like, you know what, this wasn't. Sorry. So when I was struggling, I found that only time I would speak about it, I wouldn't speak about it at all. I would speak about it would be going back to Edmonton and talking to my friends. But that was, I found to be a little detrimental to myself. It was like, it's going to have a drink and then do it, right? Like I don't want to do that, right? Like I was never that. I was never that guy.
Yeah.
But now I'm feeling compelled because, hey, otherwise how am I going to justify talking about my feelings if I don't have, like sober, I can't do that, right? Like,
Right.
I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not that guy. I don't like doing that stuff, right? So, I reached out, started looking online for peer support stuff and all that stuff, and I came across Boots on the Ground.
Oh, okay.
2020.
Okay.
Come across Boots on the Ground, and I was like, hey, I want to volunteer with you guys, right? Like, instead of calling them myself, I wanted to give back myself and wanted to be involved. And they're like, no, we don't operate in Alberta. And I go, okay, well, whenever you do, I will reach back out and stuff. But then it stayed in the back of my head, right? And during this time, again, something to be avoid when we are going through something. I've now, again, when I'm a little more mature, I've started analyzing all the things that I've done. People avoid with different things. People use alcohol. People use drugs. I didn't do any of that, but I still did things that was. I decided to be super busy. I would find things to do to keep me occupied because I did not want to deal with what was going on. And again, those could be positive things, but the impacts they have on your family and on your, social life and family life and all that, they're not positive. Right?
No, and on yourself.
Yeah, on yourself, right? Like I did a lot, right?
Yeah.
And when started going back to school, started taking masters, this and that, and blah blah, just cause you just wanted
Stay
to be
busy.
occupied, right?
Yeah.
Like, didn't want to think about all the things that were happening. Tried seeking professional help twice and 2 different occasions with 2 different people. Didn't work out. Right? Like I would go once, not go back. Right?
Just didn't connect, kind of thing.
Yeah. With so 2 people I went to more than 1 times, maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But then 1 time with everybody, right? Like 1 time with so many people. And I wanted to try it, but then every time I would go like, no, I don't want to do this, right? I don't want to do this. Or I would have to explain to them what it is that I did for my job, right?
Yep.
And I was like, I don't want to do that, right? Like I don't want to come here and talk about like trying to make somebody understand why I am the way I am. Right.
Mhm.
So I always seeked people, like-minded people. Again, came across boots on the ground. They said they're not operating in Alberta. Okay, cool. Whenever you do, let me know. And I would love to volunteer. Cool. That stayed in the back of my head. Professional help wasn't helping me, all that. 2022 was like, you know what? Why don't I bring that thing here myself?
Right.
In
Good for
Alberta.
you. Yeah.
Was following their model. Yeah, a thought did cross my mind where it's like I could start something similar. But I was like, you know what? Something already exists. Like, why would I reinvent the wheel? Right?
Right.
Like, something already exists somewhere else. And they did mention to me back in the day that they did want to expand into Alberta someday. And, you know, if they come here, then what? Are we going to be in competition? Like, I don't want to be in competition with anybody. Like, I'm literally only trying to help people the way I know best.
Yeah.
The way that has worked for me. Right? So, approached them again, and I was like, hey, I'll bring it to Alberta. Right? Like,
Yeah.
wanna give me a chance here? Anyhow, went through the motions and registered in Alberta in September of 2022, and then I went out and reached out to friends. Here's what I'm doing. Join me. But before we could ever provide our services, I needed people to be in place.
Yep.
Yeah.
So and these people needed to be trained and everything.
Yep.
And now these people, I needed a year to get that team ready. So September 2022 was my registration. 9th of September 2022 is when I got my Alberta registration. And September 25th of 2023 is
Launch.
when we launched our helplines. And what we are doing is on anytime anybody who calls this line, we say for peer support for first responders and military members, but anybody
Really
can call. We don't turn anybody away, but when military members, first responders, when they call, the call is answered by a first responder or a military member.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's done the job, somebody
Mm-hmm.
who's been there. So we're not trying to... they are trained in critical incident stress management and assist, applied suicide intervention skills. They have to have that to be able to answer phones.
Mm-hmm.
But we say we're not trying to help through education. We're trying to help through experience, right?
Right.
We have experienced it.
Yeah.
One of the main things, Ryan, like I said to you earlier, was I would have been more receptive to professional help had there been a phone line that I could call or talk to a buddy I knew or a buddy I didn't know, like, you know, a person in uniform, and they had said, hey, you should go and, you know, get help here.
Right.
Trust me, brother, right?
Yeah.
Like, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
I would have been a lot more receptive to finding that help.
I think a lot of people would relate to that, you know. I want to say, Mo, like, thank you for your vision and your perseverance in bringing Boots on the Ground to Alberta. I mean, it's such an amazing service, and I think to be able to look at your own experience and recognize how much it would have helped you if you had somebody you could have connected with through the phone who could have given you, like, that's just massive. So I congratulate you and I thank you for sticking with it. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I echo that. I mean, having done peer support, I know the value of sitting down with somebody that has shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, you've walked in my boots. You know what it's like from a paramedic perspective or corrections officer.
100%.
And I think that's the only way that we can truly connect the pieces of the puzzle to get them the assistance that they want.
And within like uniform services, like, you know, you did EMS.
Mm-hmm.
I never did it.
Yeah.
I don't know what you did for your job, but I don't have to understand what kind of trauma you've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was just
and
about
you
to say
have
that.
never done the corrections work.
Nope.
And you don't have to understand what kind of trauma I went through, right? Like, it's just, I was talking to you about my brother-in-law earlier, who's a paramedic, and I have no idea what he does for his job.
Right.
He has no idea what I did for mine.
Right.
but every time we sat down, we would talk for hours, right?
Yeah.
Like,
There's a shared brother and sisterhood that's in amongst all uniformed personnel that
100%.
really I don't think it can be replicated in a peer support. And I think that's why peer support is really so integral into the mental health support side across all uniform culture. I mean, I may not have military background, but my grandfather served in the military and he was over in Artona in World War II. I feel comfortable enough going, hey, you know what? I may not have military experience, but I've got the experience of what I've seen. And there is a translatability across the span of the uniforms we wear.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like I said, like my parents were military, right? Like it was, and they were Pakistan military, right? Like the culture is completely different, but the stigma, the mental health stigma, like they could write a book on it, right? Like,
I'm sure.
I mean, sorry, maybe they cannot write a book on it because it's a normal culture of not ever thinking that mental health exists and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I could look at my parents and I could be like, want to talk?
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh man, Mo, I have so many questions for you. So, first, you moved here in your adolescence by yourself. Where did you live? Like, where did you go? You were in Ontario.
I got lucky on my first day when I got here, I had, my father sent me with some money, but that money ran out pretty
What were
damn
you,
quick.
15, 16?
16.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I'm just thinking of my 16-year-old and my 19-year-old that are going, okay, you're going to move to a separate country. Here's some money. Good luck. Give me a
to
call.
you. And get to school.
Yeah,
Like, still get your high school done.
Don't forget to finish up school.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I got just the way the life worked was every small little thing, like you could look at things that are big problems. I learned very early to appreciate things the way it happens. I land in Toronto and there's no luggage, right? Like my luggage is lost.
Oh,
Oh
jeez.
my gosh.
It's sitting back in Dubai or something. And blessing in disguise was, I didn't have to lug it around because nobody would give me a place to stay. So, who's going to give a place to stay to a 16-year-old, right? Like
With 4
just
bags
to
of
live
luggage.
here.
Totally,
So,
Yeah.
the luggage got lost, and they're like, we'll give you a call once it gets here. And they did give me a call like 4 days later, and I was like, "Can you hold on to it for a bit?"
I don't have
just
any
hold
way to
on
get to
it.
the airport.
Yeah.
No, like it was more of just because I don't have anywhere to put it. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going places to places. Like I'm not gonna carry
All
you
your
said,
life.
4 suitcases
Yeah.
on a city bus or something, right?
Yeah.
But I ended up in Windsor, Ontario, and then I go to the first day I went to school. It was a law class, and the teacher goes, "Yeah, go sit beside that kid." Cool. Went and sat beside him, and one of those was, "Where do you live?" Because I'm really looking for a place. Where do you live? In a building across the street, right? Like, cool. What do you pay for rent? I don't. Why not? My dad's the building manager. I'm like, oh, you're the guy I was looking for. Get me a place.
Serendipity,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that evening, he got me a place to stay, and he's still a very good friend of mine.
Holy crow.
Yeah,
It makes me wonder a little bit, like you strike me as the kind of person who you're just going to figure it out. Like,
Oh yeah.
you know,
I was gonna figure it out. That's one thing. I didn't think about it myself about myself too much, but my wife started telling me that. Whereas like she would tell me something, and then she would forget about it. And then one time I was like, I think I forgot to do something, and I'm like, you could have reminded me. She goes, well, I've gotten used to the part that if I've told you something, you'll figure it out.
Right.
So
Mm.
no matter how it is, I'll figure it out. Right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
so-
Paired with,
Yep.
you're like a motivated, driven guy, right? Like, you want to join the military, so you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to drive across. Like, who does that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the day you get your citizenship.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, that was that's just life. Life has been for me, like just
Mhm.
go do it, go get it, right? Like it's, and
Let me just
sorry.
say though, like I really appreciate that because I think, there could be a perspective where you could have, arrived in Toronto and your luggage is gone, or, you couldn't get into the military because you weren't yet a citizen, whatever, where you could have kind of sat down and felt really sad or sorry about that. And you just sort of were like, it's like you don't let those obstacles dictate your destiny.
I heard from my mother. I applied to BC Corrections, and they turned me down. And I was, not that I was totally heartbroken about it, but I was quite hopeful that I would get it. And my mom said to me that time, I called my mom. She was in Pakistan. I called her and I was like, blah blah blah. And she goes, you know what? If something doesn't go your way, that means something better is waiting.
Yeah.
And I held on to that.
Yeah.
And I believed it. And that has always stayed with me, right? Like where the moment something doesn't work out, because something better is going.
Right.
Had that happened, I probably would have settled in the job, right? I would have stayed in very expensive BC. And,
Not come to Edmonton.
Yeah.
And probably would not have had all the experiences that I had that have,
Brought you to this place.
A path is built, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I was just going to say.
You
like-
asked me how I made it to this red chair. That probably would not have happened, right? So
it's like that saying, it's no different. It's when one door closes, another one opens, right?
Yeah.
And, I take a look at how I got to where I'm at now, and if I would have made one decision or changed one trajectory in one aspect, sure, there's a possibility that I could still be sitting here, but what's the possibility that it didn't happen?
100%.
Totally.
There was
Good
one
and
time-
bad, right?
Yeah.
All those experiences total up to where we are now and who we've become. And I've learned to accept that as just a part of life.
2 years ago, my older daughter is 3 years old, and I sat there and I made a map to my daughter, right? And it starts from leaving Pakistan, coming to Canada, right? Like being a kid and how I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a full roadmap, right? Like this happens, and then arrow to this thing, and then this happens. I made it on a paper, and now I'm looking at it. It was a visual representation of how I got my daughter,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
and it's a visual representation of it. And I'm like, if I take one, there's like 100 things on there.
Mm-hmm.
If I take one thing out, this doesn't happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't get to my daughter.
Yep.
Right? I do get to my daughter, but not with the same DNA. There's a possibility that I don't meet my wife.
Right.
Right.
I don't have that, she doesn't have that DNA. But she's not what she is today.
That's right.
She's not named what I have her name now, right? It's like, I just totally believe in that. If like everything is so connected.
Yeah.
Like,
And I love the perspective of, there's who we've been, right? And that's the history and all the things and what we've learned and the hardships and the successes, whatever. There's who we are now, right? Which is the culmination of those things. And we all happen to be sitting here through all the factors that brought us together. And then there's who we're yet to be, right? And to your point, it's like sometimes we have to just show up to what is happening in our lives and recognize that inevitably it will change.
100%. 100%. Just gotta believe.
That's right.
And like make your efforts and wait for the right time. I guess the timing's got to be right. The circumstances need to be right, and your effort needs to go in there.
So, like for you, do you think is your story or your journey connected to like a belief you always had in yourself?
Was I ever a super motivated, gonna do all this kind of person? No. Right? It just happened, and maybe I was and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe it was and I didn't know it, and I thought this how it happened for everybody. Right. It was that. Like it was not until I got very close to some people, like my very good friends and my wife and all that stuff is. So not until too long ago was not everybody. Everybody does not operate like this. Right? Like everybody. And then again, like the moment I started realizing that, I also started realizing that there's something that I'm avoiding,
Mhm.
right? Like that part also came in. Yes, I'm highly motivated. Yes, I'm all that. Do I enjoy all this? Yes, I 100% enjoy all this. Are there times where I go, the problem came where if I were sitting down and watching TV, I'd be like, I started feeling guilty about it, right? Where I was like, why do I have free time right now?
Right.
Right.
Is when I realized, okay, there's a problem.
Yeah.
I really love your comment about, like, sure, we can turn to drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever, but like busyness, staying busy can be a really insidious, socially acceptable way that we avoid, and yeah, like sitting down to just enjoy a moment and all of a sudden feeling anxious or feeling restless or uncertain, I think that shines a light on the fact that sometimes busyness is serving to keep us distant from something we need to attend to.
It was I thought everything was fine, right? Like in my head, I think everything is fine. I'm doing pretty good. I'm proud of what I do, all that stuff. And my wife is too, but I do take away from the time that I should be giving to my family.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a kids, now I have a 2-week-old and a 3 years old.
Yes, congratulations.
And thank you.
Mhm.
I need to give them time. I need to give my wife time. Right?
Yeah.
Like I can't, I take away from them when I'm doing all these things that I'm proud of. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not well-rounded.
Right.
I don't believe I'm well-rounded, right? Like I'm not, it's not all there. And excuse is not, it's a bad excuse if I say, well, at least I'm not out with the guys drinking. Right?
Yeah.
Like
How many people have used that excuse?
Yeah.
Right.
At least I'm not out with the guys.
Right.
At
Yeah.
least I'm not doing
here.
this.
Yeah.
At least I'm here, right?
But are you? Are you really here, right? Because, I mean,
Just
for
under the
me,
same
over the
roof.
years I was at home.
Yep.
Sure, I was with the kids. Sure, I took them out and did things while my wife worked part-time. But really, was I present in those moments where I had that meaningful connection or opportunity to connect with my children when they were younger? And that's something that I look back on as probably not, right? Because I was busy as well. That was my mode of just avoiding things.
Mm-hmm.
Stay busy, take them out, be constantly doing something, go out here, serve others, do this, do that. And yeah, it's something that I look back on and go, man, there's times where I wasn't present.
Mhm.
Wasn't present for my kids, my spouse, my friends, my family.
100%.
And then you're
100%.
taken away from that when you work and shift work, and you're working Christmases, and you're working birthdays, and you're working all these other holidays or family events, right? And it's just, well, it's just the way it is.
I'd written something, I journal and stuff, and I sometimes try to do some poetic writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote something 2 days ago. Of course, I don't remember it right now, but I wish I'd brought my journal, and it was all about time, and it was all about just that, like
Mm-hmm.
being. Actually, I do have pictures of it on my phone, but I won't read from it right now. But yeah, it was all about the time where it's like I've done all this, but where is, I wanted to be there for my friends. And I think I am there for my friends.
Right.
But I have to take the time away from something else to put it here, right?
Right.
Like it's always plug and play, Like,
See, and I don't know if this fits for you or not. Something that I often reflect on and have not figured out to any stretch is, like, I was late. My name's Megan, and I'm always late. I was late to today's meeting, whatever. I mean, part of that is because I am busy, but I love what I do, and so people will often say to me, "Oh, you're so busy, you have so much to go." And I'm like, "Yeah, it doesn't feel that way though. Like I find so much meaning in this. It's so great to connect with people." Da da da. So busyness per se isn't the issue.
Mm-hmm.
How do I draw that line, or how do I know when, I may be giving too much to my work and it's taking away from this, or, is it an amount of hours? Is it feedback from other people? Is it how I feel inside? Like, how do I determine where to draw the line around where to put my attention or my focus in all the different domains of my life?
Yep.
It's hard to figure out.
Exactly. Like I said, I don't feel like, I'm busy. That's all good. But the moment I have a free moment and I feel guilty about that,
Right.
that's the problem.
That's a
right?
good point.
Like, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Why do I have why do I have this time available? Like, what am I, I'm supposed to be doing something with this,
Yeah.
right? Like, blah, blah. I did it with education. I did it with, work. I did it with a lot of different things, right? Education wise, yeah, I started doing my master's, and then eventually it was like, yeah, it was hard. I had not done school in a very long time, and online I'd never done that, right? So I started doing that, but then as I got used to it, I was like, I need more. Like, I need more of this, right? So I went and enrolled into another school for a graduate diploma, right? Like, it was like, while I'm doing my master's, I started doing this, of all things, financial accounting graduate diploma, where it's like, I don't even know accounting, right? Like, none of that, right? Like, my bachelor's was in criminal justice, my master's in public administration, and I'm like,
just throw accounting in there.
Why am I doing accounting, right?
Yeah, numbers.
Yeah. But and I hated math. I always hated math. And I'm like, why the hell am I doing accounting? But did it, right? Like,
good
it was
for you. Wow.
But it was it was just, and I noticed. I had given my wife. I used to have the smartwatch, and I had it forever, but I never wore it. I was working in Edmonton when I got it a long time ago when it first came out, and at Edmonton you don't wear a watch like that; it's gonna break on your first shift, right? Like, you wear a Walmart watch, but so I never wore it. And it's like, if I wasn't working, I was in the gym. I'm not gonna wear it in the gym. Like, when am I gonna wear it, right? So this is before I was married and stuff. So eventually my wife wanted it, gave it to her. Because since she just gave birth, wanted to give her a gift for that, and her birthday's coming up and all that. So she wanted a new smartwatch, and I'm like, sure. Got her a new one. The old one was sitting there. I'm like, you know what? I'll start using it. So last week I put it on, and I'm sitting with my daughter. Like, I make sure that I make time and then I try to turn everything else off, right? Like, put my phone away. I'm very bad at it, but it's a work in progress. That damn thing would keep vibrating. It was like, okay, that's not a good idea. So I'm back to my normal watch, right? I'm like, I can't, yeah.
I have such a love-hate relationship with this thing.
I think we all do.
Yes.
Really. Well, I think, what I heard a lot of, and I think is, for me, it was learning boundaries of when to say no and protecting time that I have when I'm not busy and understand that in that moment, that's the time to grow and to learn, right? Because I think for me personally, my personal journey started in mindfulness and meditation about 6 years ago. And that has become a fundamental piece for me, knowing that I'm protecting that quiet time, or that time to journal, or the time to meditate, or the time to do a mindful walk, or just get outside. There's still that little background voice that says, you could be doing something different.
Yep.
You could be doing insert whatever that might be. But I've had to really kind of put in my own personal boundaries around that, because I know that time is meant for me to grow and learn, to reflect, to look inward, and whatever that looks like for every individual that's listening. I think that's important, is it's okay to be still, and it's okay to not be busy.
Yep. 100%.
But we got to learn to do that. That's a practice.
That's a learned skill, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the longest time, it used to be, and I noticed that exactly what you're saying. My, get away from everything was the gym, right? Like, I'm gonna go to the gym and blah blah. But that became a thing of like, I'm always trying to learn one thing or the other. But my gym time became where I would be listening to, something that I'm trying to learn, right? And it's like, I'm just, I go to the gym to be alone, to be, do, but now I'm sitting here and filling my head with more information that now it's becoming like making two things into one, but I'm adding that into my free time, or the things that I like, and same things are going to seep into while I'm playing with my daughter.
Multitasking.
Hey, put my earphones on and start listening to something that I'm trying to learn, or blah blah. Like, it's
what do they call it? Rapid task switching.
Yeah.
I think
Bundling of activity.
Bundling or whatever, and we can't we can't do it. We're not effective.
No.
So, and I think that's why I just intentionally every morning, I've got a very rigid morning routine. If it's a day to work out, then it's up at 5 on the Peloton, do a workout, do 30-minute meditation, cold shower. That's structure. And I think for me and I don't know if it is for you, but I imagine we're probably quite alike as far as structure is concerned, because that's what we were trained in. I protect that. My wife, Tracy, she always says, why do you have to get up at 5? I said, because that's my time. And that's my time to either just sit, to go through my meditation or my practice or whatever. And that has to be protected for everybody, I think.
I'm a 3-hour sleeper.
Are you?
3.5 at
Yeah.
most.
Like total in the day?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's it. And same thing, like even if I don't have anything else going on, I'm up at 4:30, and my wife's like, why do you wake up on a day off? On a day off, I'm up at 5.
That's a sleep in.
Another half an hour, right?
Yeah.
And my wife's always like, why? Because I don't know, that's my time, right? Like that's just, in the morning, that's my time. Right?
There's nobody up.
Yeah.
It's just me in the house, quiet. I choose what I get to do, when I do it, how I do it. Yeah, there's comfort in that for me anyway.
Are you rested when you wake up after 3.5, 4
I'm
hours?
just so used to it
You're
now.
just so used to
So
it.
used to it now that
Yeah.
it's, that's just how it goes. Right?
Wow.
Recently, now that I've switched my jobs and everything, like I came to Bow Valley in September,
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so it's recent. Yeah.
so recent. But I got out of corrections on January 22nd, so not even a month ago. Like
Holy
I
crow.
just had the leave to burn and all that.
Mhm.
So, but now that I'm like, okay, embrace this normal lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Like, try to sleep in a little more, because I was noticing it was having a lot of health impacts and all that
Sure.
stuff. So, like,
Yeah.
gotta take care of.
It may take a minute, but your body may go there, right?
It's
Yeah.
taken me
Eventually it
years
was-
to get out of that shift work pattern.
Yeah.
Years.
I wasn't shift worker for the last, because I
Mhm.
was being trainer. I was day worker, but it was just having so much on my
Totally.
having to do.
Yeah.
Like it was, I was very young in university when, it was resting is for when I die kind of thing got into my head, and it just never left.
Yeah.
It just never left.
Yeah.
And I know it's toxic. It's very toxic, but it's that's just how I operate. And now I'm trying to learn to sleep a little more, and but now when I sleep a little more, I wake up with a headache. So it's like,
That's interesting.
still learning.
I feel like our bodies do have this wisdom that sometimes we just have to get out of the way and
Yeah.
let them teach us, Let me ask you, Mo, now that you've left corrections and all that you've learned and gone through, like if you had it to do over again, would you do this? Would you take the same path?
I'm very proud of what I did. I am, of all the things I did, I probably, going back for my own personal mental health, I wouldn't leave Edmonton.
Okay.
I would stay where I was.
Wow.
But then none of this would be happening. Right?
Right.
Like it's,
It's back to that map.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I would have probably, just been a guy who does 25 years of service and retires, right? Like,
Yeah.
so there are pros and cons to everything, right?
Yeah.
Would I have done corrections? I loved that I was a public servant, right? I'm very proud of my service. But I wish I had known. I mean, you know what? For the age that I was at, like, what are you going to tell an 18-year-old that, hey, go do, I don't know, do something else with your life, right? Like, that's.
Go be an
that's
accountant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, learn how to do numbers,
Yeah.
right? I think you need a certain level of maturity to understand that those are the things that, if you're trying to get rich, you're not going to become rich becoming a cop, right?
No,
Like, it's simple
yeah.
as that, right?
Yeah.
So, if I were to tell my younger self to do something different, it would be go get some other degree, right? Like, go become something else, right? because you know what, doing it over again, I've done this. You tell me to start again tomorrow, I probably won't, right? I was at a job fair, not a job fair, it was a showcase at Bow Valley on Monday. And I was talking to an RCMP guy, and he goes, you should come join RCMP. I'm like, nope.
Close that door.
I'm done, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's done. Would I do it? Would I, you know, in another life? Like there's so many other things to experience. Why would I go back and do same thing that I've already done it. I've enjoyed it, right? I've enjoyed it. I'm good. Move on, do something else. There's so many other things. Like I do plan on starting a doctorate, and I'm thinking of the stuff. What am I going? My bachelor's was criminal justice. My master's was public administration. My doctorate is going to be, if I could get into, it's going to be in something different. Like not in those two things, because if I could get into, right? Like it's like, why would I? You know, I got education in criminal justice. I got education in public administration. I might look at some other field.
Yeah, like what jumps to mind?
Yeah. I do have to ask people. Well, you're it. I could ask you.
Sure.
Without a background or having done masters or bachelors in psychology or something, can I go into doctorate in psychology?
You could potentially, but it wouldn't be necessarily a practicing, like a counseling psychologist, right?
Yeah.
You could go in potentially into another branch of psychology, like organizational psychology, maybe something like that with your background. Yeah.
When I started masters, my interest was always war studies and stuff. And I was going to go to masters for war studies, but I was like, if I go to doctor, then I'll do it in war studies. Yeah. So I'll just do masters in something else, and then. Yeah. Because I could go to war studies with my. I'm doing my masters at Royal Military College, so. Okay. Specific to them, so. Yeah. Plan was do masters in that, do doctorate in war, but.
I just dig the fact that you have this like thirst for education and learning. I think that's so cool.
It came very late. It came now.
Yeah.
Like now, my dad is he was an academic. In his own head, he was an academic. So he always hated how not serious I was about school and all that. And I was. That he was 100% right. But I don't know. It just came at some point. It just came where I was like, I want to do these different educations and all that stuff, right? So
I think you'd come to it in your own time. Like I was, I messed around a ton in like high school and early into bachelor degree and whatever. I was like, but then it just clicks sometimes and away you go, right?
100%. Yeah. No, it was it came late and this peer support stuff, and you know, now I've really gotten interested in the mental health side of things. So if I could do something in that realm of things, I will, right?
What does Boots on the Ground need by way of support? Like how
I was just about to go there.
Yeah.
We need volunteers.
Okay.
Right. We run 4 shifts or 5 shifts a day, 4 shifts of 4 hours and 1 shift of 8 hours. That's overnight. Our helplines run 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have 3 volunteers on at one time. Wow. So they're not always answering calls, right? Like yesterday, I was taking a shift all day pretty much. I was on did midnight, and then I didn't do 7 to 11, but I did 11 to 7, 4-hour shifts. So I was on for 16 hours and didn't get a single phone call. Okay. Right? But so it's not always that things are running, but we do ask our volunteers to have a minimum of 16 hours commitment. Okay. And
16 hours a week?
16 hours a month. Sorry.
A month, okay.
Yeah. You know what? Last time I did this in a podcast, my volunteers reached out to me and said, you did not mention a month. So 16 hours a month.
16 hours a month.
16 hours, yeah. I was looking at your website before you came.
Yeah, we asked for 16 hours a month commitment of just, you know, having logged in or taking a shift. But like I said, like, you know, I took 16 hours in past 24 hours and
pretty flexible.
Call, right? So,
and it's volunteers should all either have current or past uniform service?
Yes.
Okay. So you don't want like someone like me, for instance?
We do have civilian positions
Ah.
that are not call takers. So to be a call taker, you have to have
Okay.
the
Yep.
thing. But we do have civilians on different
There's
departments
administrative
and stuff.
support and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
So yeah, we do have those, but we do need call takers, and you apply through our website or you email recruitment@botgalberta.com. Our website is botgalberta.com.
Okay.
And you apply through there. Somebody gets back to you. There's a bit of a process. We do ask for a resume, cover letter. When we first started, I was like, man, resume, cover letter, like people we are asking to join us are settled in their services. They don't have resumes and cover
Right.
letters. And
Right.
I was like, you know what? Now I understand that we are not in the work of saving lives, really. If you can't be bothered to have resume and cover letter, we don't want you.
Yeah,
So,
fair enough.
resume, cover letter, you give us those, and if we go through the process, interview, reference checks, all that stuff, once that's done, we then ask you for a police record check.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be a serving police officer, but we
Mhm.
ask for a police record check just to do everything and go through the process, and then we train you. So nobody pays for anything. We pay for all the training. We pay for assist. We pay for sizzle.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
And then once everybody is trained in that, then you're ready to, and then you do our in-house training.
Okay.
Then you're put on a phone.
Okay.
And those are just our trainings that are required to become call taker. But after that, there's a whole bunch of different trainings that we do give. We are just running very soon here, mental health first aid. We're running for our volunteers. We want to make sure that they're well taken care of as well, right? So they have done resiliency training. They've done mental health first aid is what we're going to be offering very soon here. Well, it's all set. March something, I can't remember the date. And there's trauma, what is it? Fatigue, compassion fatigue.
Okay.
Compassion fatigue training, they do that. Any other training that comes up, we offer it to our volunteers.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know,
So you're trying to take care of them
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so,
Well, it's such an important service. You know, like I think you both have spoken to it. Like the idea that somebody could call and they're going to get somebody on the other end who has just a little bit of knowledge and background like that. Just it makes such a difference.
you know, something recently happened. Do we still have time?
Oh, yeah.
Something recently that happened was I learned from my experience in boots on the ground and peer support and all that is my wife has a lot of unresolved, whatever the actual term is, childhood trauma and all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
And she's from Pakistani background as well, and it's a very cultural trauma for somebody who was born in Calgary, born and raised in Calgary. Was a lot of it, right? And she tried to get help at different places.
Yeah.
But every time she would come home and she would have the similar thing as me when I came home, and I said I had to make them understand what I do for my work. And until I started coming here, you know, it's more geared towards that. And I sent her here, and she came back and said the same thing. She said, I had to make them understand where the hell am I coming from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And, you know, trying to make somebody understand the culture. But now, after maturing a little bit, I, you know, reached out. I went on LinkedIn and I started looking up different professional help for my wife, but with a very specific search criteria.
Yeah.
Certain, at the risk of, you know, hopefully not sounding racist or anything. I wasn't trying to be racist. Yeah.
Cultural competency.
Cultural. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was, So I was looking for a specific, I went by names, and then I, you know, narrowed it down to names gave me some information about the background of the person, and then
Sure.
going down all the way down to, hey, Pakistani the therapists or professional help available through the professionals from Pakistani background, and we finally found one.
Wow.
And when I actually chatted, when I sent her all the information, hey, here's what my wife has gone through. Like, this is just in the nutshell. You think you could help her out? And then when they talked, they related
Mhm.
Wow.
completely.
Yeah.
And now my wife's a weekly thing, right? And I was
Yeah.
like, that's how
So good.
important the peer support portion is. That you
Sure.
need to understand where somebody else is coming from, right? Like,
Totally.
it's that doesn't make anybody a bad therapist or a bad client.
Mm-mm.
It's just, if you don't connect, if you can't understand where I'm coming from, your books cannot give you that.
100%. I mean, and I say to people all the time, I just said it yesterday to someone, it's like the relationship that you're going to have with that person is more important than any technique, any intervention, whatever. You have to feel like you have that, that ability to connect and understand one another. It's so important.
It is so, you're going to be so vulnerable
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that I better have a good connection with this person before I even open up. Right?
Totally.
So,
Totally.
Well, and I think that's why it's so important with organizations like Boots on the Ground or Wounded Warriors Canada, or individual peer support teams within each profession, because there's that cultural competency inherent based upon the uniform. And again, like we talked about earlier, it's you wear a uniform whether you're a police officer, a firefighter, a paramedic, corrections officer. I mean, the list is exhaustive. Even healthcare workers, I can sit and provide peer support, I feel, from that lens, because there is some collective shared experience within that. And I think, cultural competency in therapy, cultural competency in your peer support teams is so imperative to actually help people see that they're not alone.
100%.
And that's,
100%.
I think, what I've heard, and I've done peer support on and off for the better part of 15 years. And it's, I felt like I was alone. And now I feel like I'm actually heard.
Yep.
And that's a gateway that opens up to so much opportunity for painful reflection on the individual's part that's asking for peer support, because it's not easy to go through therapy. And you hit the nail on the head with the word vulnerability. And, I just want our listeners to know vulnerability is not weakness.
Nope.
If anything, it's courage. When you can find that connection, whether it's peer support or therapy, and you actually have the vulnerability to say, I'm suffering and I need help. And okay, here I am.
We have proved our bravery, right? Like, we have proved our bravery by being the 1% of the world's population. What is it? 1%, 3%, whatever it is.
Something like that.
To go into uniform, right? Like, putting on a uniform is literally everybody who's putting on a uniform is going into things that nobody else would go into.
Yeah.
So I've proven my bravery, right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody all of us have proven our bravery. So asking for help is not going to take away from it, right?
No.
Like, we just ask for help, and that makes you, be brave better.
Well, and please, everybody, keep doing it. Keep asking for help. Because like I was saying a little while ago, when you join the peer support team within the Edmonton team, like, there's such permission giving. Every single time someone says, I need help, you're just giving permission for the person who's coming behind you to do the same,
100%.
Yeah.
You talk just so somebody else in the room who's thinking about talking would be encouraged to do it, right?
Completely.
Like, there were so many times that I used to, when I did peer support in Edmonton, I used to say, even if you don't need to talk, just talk so somebody else would, right? Just talk so somebody else would, and maybe somebody else would be encouraged to do it, right? Just because, and every research out there has shown that so many people who end their lives, right? Like, try to talk to their peers. They're not going to talk to their family. That's already established, right? Like, can we fight it? Yeah, let's fight it another day. But today, we don't bring it to our families.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to talk with each other. Let's have that chat, right? Like, let's keep talking about it. And Sheridan had mentioned that on your podcast, and I would do is, the peer supporters need to understand where their role ends and where the role of somebody professional starts.
Yeah.
It's very important for us to understand that we don't, if somebody is allowing you to get an insight on what they're going through, don't exploit it. Like, let it go when it's time to, move them to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Like, we are not the professionals. We are only here to listen. We are only here as buddies, right? Like, we are talk to a buddy, right? And that's it. And we are not the professional help. And we need to, every peer supporter team out there needs to understand that at Boots on the Ground, there's, we vet any professionals who apply to, so they apply to us and say, we want to be listed on your reference page because we do have a reference page. Or referral page, sorry, not a reference page. Your referral page, I'm also an instructor, so reference page, I'll just run that, right? So, on a referral page, and they apply to us and they go, hey, we, individuals and, organizations, and we interview them. We have a therapist on our team who interviews them, and we find out whether they have experience with first responders, and, if they pass everything, then we put our name behind them, basically saying that we have vetted them.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to this person and you could chat with them, or we would refer
To them directly.
Right.
to them directly
Yep.
after we have chatted with them a little bit. And that's us saying, hey, listen, we are not the professionals.
Yeah, that's right.
You want a professional help? We will provide you with somebody who could give you professional help. We don't take anything from it. Like, anybody who we refer to, we don't get any kickback or anything like that. And we don't even take any responsibility.
Yeah.
We are only saying we have vetted them. They know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Whether your benefits cover them, don't cover them, what your fees, we have nothing to do
They're
with
just
that,
a resource.
right? We are just saying that we are putting our name behind them, that they know what they're talking about, and that's it, right? And that's what I'm saying, right? Like, if I had called Boots on the Ground back in the day and somebody had said, hey, we do have this referral page, we have interviewed them, we put our name behind them, I would have gone to
That's
them.
what you needed. Yeah, totally. No, I think that's so important because I mean, especially in a time of distress or confusion or not knowing what's going on, just having a little bit of that guidance, to direct you into, in some place that hopefully can help you, We've taken way more than most time than we should, but this was amazing. I could talk to you for the whole afternoon.
Oh, thank you so much.
No,
Thank you for coming. This was amazing.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Mo, it's, from a person that's done peer support, your initiative to bring Boots on the Ground to Alberta and what you've done, wow. It's an amazing service that you're providing. I know there's lots of peer support teams out there for different organizations, but to have an Alberta-wide one, I think is really important so that people, if they need the help, they can get it. And so just last little bit of a plug, what's the phone number for the referral?
It's 1-866-724-2684. Again, it's running 24/7, 365. That is 1-866-724-BOTG. And our website is botgalberta.com. And it is different than Ontario Boots on the Ground, so they have a different website. So if
Make sure you got the Alberta. Yep.
Got Alberta, and then Facebook is again BOTG Alberta, Instagram, TikTok.
You got it all.
LinkedIn, Twitter,
Yeah.
Stuff is on
All
there.
the
Yeah,
things.
Twitter or
Yeah, so
X
you
now.
could-
Yeah.
yeah. You could find us on any of that and give us a call at any time.
Yeah, thank you. And just, wow, you are a really exceptional human, and I'm really
Oh,
pleased.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have met you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
took a
you.
lot away
Same
from this
here.
conversation.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
All right.
Ryan.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Megan.
Ryan.
All right.
Thanks, Megan.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mental Health Mixtape, brought to you by the Before Operational Stress Program. We hope today's conversation has resonated with you and provided valuable insights into navigating the complexities of mental health. Remember, your well-being is our priority. If you or someone you know could benefit from the support and resources offered by the Before Operational Stress Program, don't hesitate to reach out. Take that first step towards a healthier, more resilient you. And here's a special treat for our dedicated listeners. A 15% discount waits for you when you sign up through the code provided in the show notes. Investing in your mental health has never been more accessible. We appreciate your continued support and commitment to breaking the stigma surrounding mental health. Let's keep the conversation going. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.